The scalpel slipped from Dr. David Harlan's trembling hand, clattering against the sterile tray like a gunshot in the hushed or, as the monitor flatlined with a relentless wail that drowned out his silent scream. "He's gone," the lead surgeon barked, yanking off bloodied gloves. But David stood frozen, staring at the young man's lifeless face, the same face that had whispered, "I love you," in a fevered dream just hours before in the dim Bay. 15 years of burying his heart under layers of sutures and sarcasm. And now, on the night he finally decided to confess everything, James was dead, taking David's unspoken truths to the grave. David stumbled out of the operating room, the fluorescent lights blurring into halos as he ripped off his mask, gasping for air that tasted like regret. The ER buzzed around him, codes called, gurneys rattling, nurses shouting orders, but he was a ghost, invisible in the place he'd called home for a decade and a half. He collapsed into a chair in the deserted break room, the hidden letter burning a hole in his pocket. Words he'd written for James, for himself, for the hospital that had become his prison. With shaking fingers, he sealed it inside the ancient staff suggestion box bolted to the wall, a relic no one had touched in years. "Let them find it after I'm gone," he whispered to the empty room, the weight of 15 closeted years crashing down like the storm raging outside the Chicago General windows. Rain lashed against the towering glass facade of Chicago General Hospital, turning the Windy City skyline into a smeared watercolor of neon and shadow. It was a typical November night in 2025, bitter cold seeping through the cracks, the kind that made your bones ache like an untreated fracture. David Harlan, 42 and fraying at the edges, pushed through the ER's double doors, his white coat flapping like a defeated flag. He'd been here since he was 27, fresh out of med school at Rush University, all wide-eyed ambition and buried secrets. Back then, the AIDS crisis was a fading echo, but for guys like him, gay, Midwestern-raised, Catholic guilt etched into his DNA, coming out was still a one-way ticket to exile. Harlan, Bay 3, incoming MVC, multiple victims, ETA 2 mics, Nurse Ramirez's voice cut through the din, sharp as a trauma shears. David nodded, snapping into autopilot, gloves on, vitals check, the ritual that had saved lives and numbed his soul. He didn't think about James then, couldn't afford to. James Whitaker, the paramedic with the crooked grin and eyes like Lake Michigan on a clear day, had crashed into his life 6 months ago during a mass casualty drill. "Hey, Doc, you ever smile without looking like you're prescribing laxatives?" James had teased, slinging his med bag over one shoulder, all easy confidence and flannel under his turnout gear. David had laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in years. It was dangerous, that laugh. It cracked the armor he'd built brick by brick, the fake dates with nurses to quash rumors, the straight porn on his browser history to fool IT audits, the endless overtime to avoid quiet nights alone in his Lincoln Park walk-up. But James? He saw through it. Late shifts turned into coffee runs at the all-night diner on Halsted, then stolen beers on the L train platform, shoulders brushing in the humid summer air. "You're holding back, Dave," James said one night, his hand lingering too long on David's knee under the table. "Like you're waiting for permission to breathe. Permission. God, if only." David's family back in Peoria. Mom with her rosary beads, Dad with his John Deere cap and unspoken disapproval had made it clear. "We love you, son, but don't make us choose." So he chose for them. 15 years of choosing silence, of watching colleagues marry, have kids, live loud while he stitched wounds and swallowed his own. James was the first real crack in that facade. A man who kissed like he meant it, who traced the scars on David's hands from old or mishaps and called them battle marks. Their first time was in the back of James's ambulance after a false alarm call, the siren lights painting their skin red and blue, urgent and forbidden. But tonight, as David triaged the car wreck victims, a mom shielding her kid, a dad pinned by the dash, James's face haunted him. Not the living James, with his laugh lines and calloused palms, but the ghost from earlier that shift. James had rolled in with a John Doe, mid-20s, gunshot to the abdomen, pale as the snow piling up outside. ETA 5. Doc. Hang in there, buddy. James had radioed, his voice steady over the static. David met them at the bay, barking orders. Intubate, type and cross, get me or two. The kid, Tommy, his wallet said, clutched David's sleeve as they wheeled him up. Tell him. I tried. Tommy gasped, eyes wild with pain and something deeper, like unfinished business. David pushed it down, focused on the surgery. But in the scrub room, as he gowned up, Tommy's whisper echoed. And then, in the bleed they couldn't staunch, the code that turned futile. When the monitor flatlined, David saw it, the tattoo on Tommy's wrist, a tiny rainbow flag inked in faded blue, matching the one James had shown off proudly last week. My little rebellion, James had joked, flexing his arm. David's world tilted. Tommy wasn't just a patient. He was James's ex, the one who'd ghosted him 2 years back after coming out to his Bible Belt family and getting disowned. James had never said the name, but the pieces slammed together. The late-night texts David pretended not to notice, the way James's eyes shadowed when David dodged questions about his own past. Betrayal hit like a defibrillator jolt. Not Tommy's, James's, for keeping this secret while unraveling David's carefully knotted lies. David fled to the break room, the letter spilling from his pocket like vomit. He'd written it that morning, before the shift, in a fit of reckless hope. To whoever finds this, I've loved in silence for 15 years. James Whitaker made me want to speak. If you're reading this, know that love isn't a wound to hide. It's the only thing worth bleeding for. Forgive me for not saying it sooner. David Harlan. He taped it shut, scrawled, "For James" on the envelope, then, impulse overriding fear, slid it into the suggestion box. The box was a joke, a dusty metal thing from the 90s, meant for anonymous gripes about vending machines. No one checked it. Maintenance hauled it to archives yearly. But tonight, with Tommy's body in the morgue and James probably en route to another call, David wanted it found. Wanted the hospital, the place that had witnessed his miracles and muted his heart, to choke on his truth. His phone buzzed, a text from James. Hey, you okay? Heard about the GSW. Beers after? David's thumb hovered, then typed, not tonight. Tired. He hit send, then powered off, the lie settling like lead in his gut. Outside, the rain turned to sleet, mirroring the storm inside. He grabbed his coat, signed out at the desk, Nurse Ramirez shooting him a worried glance, and stepped into the night, the city swallowing him whole. The L train rattled northward, empty save for a few night owls and a homeless guy nursing a flask. David slumped against the window, watching his reflection fracture in the passing lights. Memories flooded. His first day at Chicago General, interning under Dr. Elias, the grizzled vet who'd pulled him aside after a rough code. "Kid, this job eats your soul if you let it. Find something outside these walls to hold on to." David had nodded, but what was there? Med school hookups that fizzled into awkward silences. A string of straight roommates who eyed him sideways. Until James. James, with his Iowa farm boy roots and unapologetic queerness. He'd come out at 16. Lost friends but gained a fire that drew people in, like David, moth to flame. Their dates were clandestine poetry. Picnics in Grant Park at dawn. Hands intertwined under blankets. Drives up to Lake Geneva. Windows down. Springsteen blasting as James sang off-key about Born to Run hearts. "You're safe with me, Dave," James murmured one twilight, pulling him close on a deserted beach, the waves lapping like confessions. And David believed it, let himself fall, kisses tasting of salt and freedom, bodies moving in rhythm with the hidden pulse of their desire. But Tommy's ghost lingered. David pictured James at the scene, stabilizing the kid, maybe whispering encouragements laced with old love. Had James known Tommy was spiraling? The gunshot screamed suicide attempt. The note in Tommy's pocket, found post-op, a rambling plea. "Can't hide anymore. Tell Jay I'm sorry." James must have pieced it together en route. Why hadn't he said? Why drag David into this web without warning? The train lurched to a stop at Armitage. And David bolted, the cold slapping sense into him. His apartment was a third-floor walk-up in a brick brownstone. Bookshelves sagging with medical tomes and dog-eared paperbacks. Steinbeck. Baldwin. Stories of men loving men in shadows. He poured a scotch, neat, and sank onto the couch, the letter's absence a phantom itch. What if James found it? What if the hospital did first? Exposure after 15 years. Whispers in the halls. Raised eyebrows at rounds. HR seminars on inclusivity that felt like pity parades. Sleep evaded him, chased by dreams of or lights and accusing eyes. Dawn broke gray and unforgiving, the city stirring with commuter hum. David's alarm blared at 6 a.m., another shift looming. He dressed mechanically, the mirror reflecting a man hollowed out, stubble shadowing jaws clenched too long. As he descended the stairs, his phone powered back on, 3 missed calls from James, a voicemail waiting. "David? It's me. Shit. Last night. Tommy. He was my ex. I should have told you. Please, call me back. I love you, man. Don't shut me out." The words hung in the air, a lifeline or a noose. David deleted it, pocketed the phone, and stepped into the fray of morning traffic, the hospital calling him back like a siren song. Little did he know, across town, the maintenance crew was prying open the suggestion box for its annual purge, and David's envelope tumbled out, sealed with a truth ready to ignite. Chicago General's ER was a pressure cooker by 7:15 a.m., the post-rush hour influx hitting like a tidal wave. Flu cases masquerading as heart attacks, construction workers with mangled fingers, a strung-out teen ODing in the bathroom. David dove in, his hands steady on the chaos, but his mind was a civil war. James's voicemail looped in his head. "I love you, man." A declaration dropped like a grenade, too late and too loaded. He triaged a diabetic coma, sutured a laceration, all while scanning faces for James's, dreading the confrontation. Came at noon, in the cafeteria line. The smell of overcooked Salisbury steak and weak coffee was a ritual bomb, but today it curdled in David's stomach. James appeared at his elbow, tray in hand, his paramedic blues rumpled from an overnight. "Dave," he said, voice low, urgent. Close. Exhaustion carved hollows under his eyes, but that grin flickered, hopeful. "We gotta talk." David loaded his plate. Mashed potatoes, green beans, the bland armor of routine, and nodded toward a corner table, away from the gossip mill of docs and nurses. They sat, forks scraping porcelain like accusations. "Tommy," David started, not looking up. "You knew it was bad, didn't you? Why pull me into surgery without a heads up?" James winced, spearing a meat patty without appetite. "I didn't know it'd be you on rotation. Dispatch said or was backed. I figured it'd go to plastics or somebody. And yeah, I knew he was struggling, texts last month. Vague shit about ending it. I tried reaching out, but he blocked me. Dave, it was 2 years ago. We were kids, fumbling through first loves. He chose the closet. I couldn't stay." The word stung, mirroring David's own buried choices. "And me? Am I just the next fumbling attempt? You drop 'I love you' in a voicemail like it's nothing. After hiding this." James reached across, fingers brushing David's knuckles, electric, forbidden in this fishbowl of a room. "It's not nothing. It's everything. You're not Tommy, you're you. Steady, brilliant, the guy who holds the line when the world's bleeding out. I fell for you because you see me, even when you're hiding from yourself." David pulled back, heat rising. "Hiding? Try surviving. This place, it's not some rainbow parade. You waltz in, out and proud, while I've got 15 years of DR. Harlan, the reliable straight shooter to uphold. One slip, and it's sidelong glances, lost referrals, whispers that I'm distracted." James's eyes softened, pain etching deeper. "That's bullshit, Dave. The world's changed. Prop 8's dead. Marriage equality's law. Hell, the hospital's got a GSA now, Gay Straight Alliance. Remember the flyer? You're not alone." But David was. Always had been. He thought of his internship year, crushing on a resident named Alex, stolen glances in the locker room, a brush of hands that ended in awkward laughs. Alex transferred out, married a dental hygienist. David learned to lock it down. Then the years blurred, promotions to attending, mentorships, the quiet pride of saving lives. But nights alone, scrolling Grindr incognito, deleting profiles before dawn. Until James, who made him want more, lazy Sundays in bed, hands exploring scars and stories, whispers of forever. "I wrote you a letter," David confessed, voice barely above the clatter of trays. "Last night. Stuck it in the suggestion box. If you find it, burn it." James leaned in, breath warm. "Why hide? Let me read it. Let me in." Before David could answer, "Dr." Elias shuffled over, coffee in hand, his Parkinson's tremor making the cup dance. "Harlan. Whitaker. Trouble in Paradise." The old man chuckled, but his eyes were sharp, praising. Elias had been David's anchor, the one who'd spotted his talent and his torment early. "Heard about the GSW. Tough one. You two okay?" "Fine, Doc," James said smoothly, but David felt exposed, like Elias could smell the secrets on them. Elias nodded, lingering. "Life's short, boys. Saw too many codes turn to regrets. Whatever's eating you, spit it out before it's too late. He shuffled off, leaving a wake of wisdom and unease. The shift dragged, a blur of charts and crises. David assisted in a C-section. Tiny cries piercing the sterile air, a reminder of joys he'd never chased. James texted sporadically, "Miss you already. Dinner at my place?" David ignored them, burying in work until twilight bled into the halls. He clocked out at 8 p.m., the rain a relentless drum. The L home was crowded, bodies pressed close, and David let himself imagine James's among them. Solid, reassuring. His phone buzzed again. A photo from James. A screenshot of an old Polaroid, them at the diner. David's rare smile captured mid-laugh. Caption: "This is us. Don't run." Guilt gnawed. Betrayal wasn't just James's secret. It was David's fear, poisoning what could be. He detoured at Fullerton, texting coming over. "We talk." For real. James's Wicker Park apartment was a third-floor charmer in a converted warehouse, exposed brick and Edison bulbs casting warm glows. He opened the door in sweats, hair tousled, pulling David into a hug that smelled of soap and safety. "Thank God," James murmured, lips brushing temple. They ordered Thai, pad cew and spring rolls, comfort in curry heat, and ate on the couch, knees touching. The letter hung unspoken, a specter. "Tell me about Tommy," David said finally, chasing noodles with Singa. James sighed, setting down his fork. "Met him at paramedic training. Des Moines. Both green, both scared. He was the quiet one, from some evangelical town. We hooked up in the dorms, thought it was forever. Then his folks found out, kicked him out, called him abomination. He crawled back to the closet, said it was safer. I begged him to fight, he chose them. Haven't spoken till last month." David nodded, empathy warring with jealousy. "And now he's gone. Because of that choice." "Not just that. The world's cruel, Dave. But you're fighting the wrong war. Hiding from love, that's the real killer." David's throat tightened. "I can't lose this place. It's all I have." James cupped his face, thumbs tracing jawline. "You have me. Us." The kiss started soft, tentative, a question. David answered, deepening it, hands fisting James's shirt, pulling him closer. They tumbled back, clothes shedding like old skin, bodies reconnecting in urgent grace. James's touch was reverent, mapping collarbones, dipping to hips, whispers of beautiful against heated skin. David arched, surrendering, the room fading to rhythm and release, a momentary absolution. After, tangled in sheets, James traced lazy patterns on David's chest. Stay the night. No more hiding. David wanted to, God. He did. But dawn meant shifts, scrutiny, the envelope waiting like a guillotine. One night, he whispered, but even as he said it, doubt crept in. What if the hospital found it first? What if his truth spilled? Not in love's embrace, but in scandal's glare? Morning brought coffee and stolen kisses. James humming Dylan in the kitchen. David dressed, the real world intruding. Promise me, James said at the door. We face this together. I promise, David lied, the words ash on his tongue. He kissed James goodbye, stepped into the crisp air, and headed to the hospital, unaware that across town, the maintenance log had a new entry, suggestion box cleared. Odd letter found, forwarding to admin. By afternoon, the ER hummed with normalcy, but whispers slithered, heard Harlan's off his game. David ignored them, focusing on a pediatric asthma attack. Tiny lungs wheezing under his stethoscope. Then his pager screamed, admin. Stat. Heart pounding. He took the elevator up, corridors narrowing like a noose. The admin office was a beige purgatory, fluorescent buzz and filing cabinets. Ms. Rivera, the steely HR director, sat behind her desk, the envelope open before her. Dr. Harlan. Care to explain? David's knees buckled into the chair. It's personal. She slid it across. It's a coming out letter. To a colleague. In a suggestion box. This could be disruptive. Disruptive. The word ignited something feral. Disruptive? Try liberating. 15 years. Ms. Rivera. Saving lives while pretending to be half a man. James Whitaker, he's the best thing in mine. If that's disruptive, good. Shake this place up. Her eyes widened, then softened, a flicker of humanity. David, we've come far. Pride flags in the lobby, trans health training. But procedure. Screw procedure, he cut in, voice cracking. Tommy died last night. Because of secrets. I won't. She leaned back, praising. The board meets tomorrow. We'll discuss. But Harlan, this might just save more than lives. He left dazed, the hospital tilting. Down in the ER, James waited by the bay, eyes searching. What happened? David pulled him into the supply closet, door clicking shut. They found it. It's out. James's grin broke wide, pulling him close. Then let's own it. For the first time, David didn't pull away. The fallout hit like a nor'easter, winds of rumor whipping through Chicago General's corridors faster than a code blue. By evening rounds, David's pager was silent, but the stares weren't. Nurses averting eyes, residents murmuring behind clipboards, even the janitor pausing mid-mop with a knowing nod. He'd clocked out early. Ms. Rivera's take the night, a polite eviction. And now he paced James's apartment, the skyline a glittering accusation beyond the windows. They're talking, David said, sinking onto the couch. Scotch in hand, second pour, burning less now. James sat cross-legged on the floor, back against his knees, a six-pack of Goose Island between them like a peace offering. Let M. Means they're listening. James cracked a beer, foam spilling over knuckles. Remember my first pride? Des Moines, 2012. 20 of us marching with signs, rest of town gawking like we'd summoned the devil. Felt like Armageddon, then like flying. David envied that fire, the ease of wearing truth like a badge. I marched once. College, Urbana. Anonymous in the crowd, heart hammering. Then Mom called, proud of you for activism, sweetie, and I puked in the bushes. Haven't been back. James's hand found his calf, squeezing. That's then. This is us. Tomorrow, we walk in together. Hands or not, your call. The offer terrified and thrilled. A precipice David had skirted for years. They ordered deep dish from Lou Malnati's, sausage, extra cheese, the city's greasy hug, and ate in comfortable silence, forks clinking, TV murmuring a Blackhawks rerun. Post-meal, James pulled him to the fire escape, the November chill nipping at bare arms. Below, Wicker Park pulsed, hipsters spilling from dive bars, dog walkers under street lamps, the L rumbling like a heartbeat. "Look at that," James said, arm around David's waist. "All these lives, messy and real. Yours fits right in." David leaned into him, the warmth seeping through flannel. They kissed slow, unhurried, the city fading to just breath and belonging. Back inside, lovemaking was tender, exploring, affirming. James's murmurs of "mine" against neck and navel, David's gasps a litany of release. Sleep came deep, dreamless, James's snores a lullaby. Dawn cracked with a vengeance, coffee brewing as David dressed in fresh scrubs from James's drawer, too tight in the chest, a badge of borrowed courage. They rode the L south together, rush hour crush forcing proximity, thighs pressed, fingers interlaced in the press of bodies. No one noticed, or if they did, it didn't matter. At the hospital doors, James paused. "Ready?" David nodded, throat tight. "With you?" "Yeah." The ER swallowed them, but the air crackled different, electric with undercurrents. Nurse Ramirez cornered David first, bear hugging him in the med cart aisle. "Mijo, that letter, braver than any code I've run. Proud of you." Her eyes glistened, and David hugged back, the dam cracking. Rounds were a gauntlet, Dr. Patel clapping his shoulder. "Heard you're joining the club, Harlan. Beers at Sidetrack Friday." A nod to Boystown's legendary gay bar. Even cranky old Dr. Voss, the orthosurgeon with a mustache like a broom, grunted, "About time, kid. Life's too short for bullshit." But not all breezes were fair. In the lounge, second-year resident Lila cornered him, arms crossed. "So, the letter's viral in group chat. Some folks are saying it's TMI for a suggestion box." "Unprofessional." David's hackles rose. "Unprofessional? Saving lives while lying about who I am, that's unprofessional." "Love isn't." She flushed, backing off. "Whatever. Just watch your back." James texted from a rig. "Kicking ass yet? Love you." David smiled, pocketing it, then dove into a multi-car pileup, victims streaming in, adrenaline surging. He led the team, voice steady, hands sure, the closet's ghost finally exorcised. Mid-shift, Ms. Rivera paged him to the boardroom. The space was mahogany and menace, 7 suits around a polished table, chief of staff, legal, a token resident rep. Rivera introduced, "Dr. Harlan, we've reviewed your submission." David stood tall, no chair offered. "It's not a submission. It's my life." Chief Dr. Langford, silver-haired and surgical, steepled fingers. 15 years. Exemplary record. This revelation complicates dynamics, especially with Mr. Whitaker's affiliations. "Complicates," David echoed, heat rising. "Tommy Whitaker, no relation. Thank God, died hiding." "I won't. Fire me if you must, but don't pretend this hospital champions diversity while policing hearts." A murmur rippled. The resident rep, a queer non-binary intern named Kai, spoke up, "With respect, Chief, the GSA's petitioned for this. Staff morale's tanking on secrecy mandates." Harlan's letter? It's a catalyst. Langford sighed, rubbing temples. No one's firing you. But sensitivity training, updated policies, and Harlan counseling. Mandatory. David exhaled, the knot loosening. Fair. But James stays in my orbit. No restrictions. Agreed, Rivera interjected. Welcome to the light, Doctor. He left lighter, the board's olive branch a fragile truce. Downstairs, James waited, leaning on a gurney, grin wolfish. Verdict. Surviving. You. Always. They fist-bumped. Public but platonic progress. Not perfection. The week blurred into a whirlwind. Emails from allies. Coffee invites from the GSA. A quiet lunch with Elias. Knew you had it in you. Son, the old doc said. Voice gravel. Saw the way you looked at that paramedic. Reminded me of my Navy days. Don't ask. Don't tell. My ass. David laughed. Real and raw. Thanks, Doc. For everything. Betrayal's shadow lingered. Though in Tommy's file. Closed but haunting. David pulled strings for a memorial. Anonymous donation to a suicide hotline in Tommy's name. James joined. Eyes wet. He'd want this. Living loud. Their first public date was sidetrack. Neon glow. Drag queens lip-syncing Gaga. Bodies swaying in rainbow haze. David tensed at first. Hyper-aware of glances. But James's hand in his anchored. Shots of Malort. Chicago's bitter right. Loosened limbs. And soon they danced. Sweat slick and free. The crowd a chorus of acceptance. Back home. Passion reignited, fiercer. Uninhibited. James pinned him to the wall. Lips trailing fire. No more shadows, he growled. And David agreed. Nails raking back. Cries echoing their union. But cracks spiderwebbed. Whispers turned to emails. Anonymous tips to HR about inappropriate conduct. A patient complaint, homophobic rant from a bigoted dad whose kid David saved. Escalated to review. Fraternizing with staff, it alleged. Code for their love. David confronted James one stormy night. Thunder rumbling like unrest. Is it worth it? The scrutiny? James pulled him close. Rain pattering windows. You're worth it. We are. Yet doubt festered. David's family called. Mom's voice tentative. Heard from a cousin. You seeing someone? A man? Peoria prejudice clashed with tentative pride. She prayed. He hung up. Climax brewed at the hospital gala. Black tie fundraiser in the atrium. David in tux, James's gift. Felt exposed. A peacock among pigeons. They arrived arm in arm. The room hushing then applauding. Langford's toast to brave hearts. But in the shadows, Voss cornered him. Breath whiskey sour. Flashy. Harlan. But ER's no catwalk. One mistake. And you're out. The threat landed. Venomous. David brushed it off. Danced with James slow. Swaying to Norah Jones but unease coiled. Later, in the valet line, James's phone rang. Dispatch. Major incident. Go, David said, kissing quick. Alone in the cab. His own phone lit. A photo. Grainy, him and James in the closet. Time-stamped weeks back. Text. Resign or this goes public. A friend. Betrayal. Fresh and sharp. Who? Voss? Lila? The hospital's underbelly rearing. David forwarded to Rivera. Then called James. Someone's gunning for us. The photo burned in David's mind like a fresh burn. Pixels of intimacy twisted into ammunition. He barely slept, tossing in James's bed while his lover ran the overnight. Another warehouse fire, acrid smoke still clinging to turnout gear when he stumbled in at 5 a.m. Saw the text, James murmured, stripping down, sliding under sheets. We'll fight it. David curled into him, seeking solace in muscle and heartbeat. What if it's not worth the war? You, me, collateral in their game. James tilted his chin up, eyes fierce. Bullshit. This is our story, not theirs. Tomorrow, we trace it. Dawn brought strategy over diner eggs. James's buddy in IT, a queer coder named Riley, owed favors. IP trace. Easy, Riley texted back. By noon, they had a name, Lilachin, the resident, forwarding from a burner app. Motive? Jealousy, passed over for a fellowship. David recommended another for whispers of her own repressed bisexuality fueling resentment. Confrontation came in the ER's quiet hour, post-lunch lull. David found her charting in the nurse's station, pen scratching furious. Lila. We need to talk. She stiffened, not meeting eyes. About. He slid his phone across, the photo glaring. This. You sent it. Why? Her facade cracked, tears welling. Because you're everything I'm not. Loved. Plotted. I buried mine, girlfriend in med school. Family disowned her. Seeing you parade it, like salt in the wound. David's anger softened, recognition dawning. Then why hurt us? Join the fight. Don't sabotage it. She wiped her face, voice small. I don't know how. Feels safer to tear down. James appeared then, summoned by text, his presence a steadying force. Hey. We're all scarred here. Let us help you heal. Lila nodded, crumbling. They talked, raw, real over vending machine coffee. By shift's end, she confessed to HR. The photo deleted, a joint statement drafted. Rivera called it a teachable moment, mandating allyship workshops. Voss grumbled but backed off, his threat exposed as bluster. Relief washed, but the scare lingered, a reminder of fragility. David and James leaned in harder. Weekend in Saugatuck, Michigan's gay haven. Dune hikes hand in hand. Bonfires with locals swapping stories of hard-won freedoms. This, James said, toes in Lake Michigan sand, is what Tommy missed. What we won't. Back in Chicago, romance deepened, romantic gestures amid routine. James surprising with tickets to Hamilton. David cooking pasta bolognese. Candles flickering. Intimacy evolved. Vulnerable. Pillow talk of futures. Adoptions, maybe. A house in Andersonville with a porch swing. You, me, against the world, James vowed, sealing with a kiss that promised eternity. But conflict simmered broader. The hospital board, buoyed by David's letter, announced inclusivity reforms, queer health elective, Pride Month rotations. Applause thundered, but backlash brewed. Conservative donors pulling funds. A petition from concerned staff, citing moral erosion. Chief Langford called David in. You're the face now. Testify at the next meeting. Sell it. David balked. I'm a surgeon, not a spokesman. You're both, Langford pressed. Or we fold. Pressure mounted, bleeding into home. James, empathetic but frayed, Snapped one night over burnt chicken. Can't you see? This isn't just us. It's the line we draw. David recoiled. And if I draw wrong? Lose everything. You think I haven't? James shot back, voice breaking. Quit my old department for harassment. Chose you over safe. Silence stretched. Wounds raw. They slept apart. The bed a chasm. Morning brought apologies. Hugs. Make-up sex urgent and reconciling. But the rift echoed. Climax crested at the board meeting. A packed auditorium in the hospital's conference wing. David stood at the podium. Lights harsh. 200 faces blurring. Allies. Skeptics. Strangers. James in the front row. Thumbs up. I've worked here 15 years, David began. Voice steady despite the quake in his chest. Saved lives. Lost them. Buried my own gay. Alone. Terrified of judgment. That letter, it wasn't a stunt. It was survival. Murmurs rippled. He spoke of Tommy. Anonymized. A young man died hiding. Not from bullets, but silence. We can't preach healing while wielding scalpels on souls. A donor stood, red-faced. This agenda, it's divisive. What about families? Values? David met his gaze. Families like mine? Mom in Peoria, praying for my lost path. But love's not loss, it's found. James taught me that. Applause erupted. Sporadic then swelling. James's whoop cutting through. But as David stepped down, a side door banged open. Voss, wild-eyed, clutching a folder. Lies. Harlan's unstable. Affair with staff. Cover-ups. Gasps. Security swarmed. But damage bloomed. Voss waving printouts. Twisted logs of David's overtime with James, implying embezzlement. Betrayal's ugly head. The old surgeon's grudge from a botched consult years back. Now weaponized. Chaos reigned, shouts. Flashbulbs from press in the back. David froze. James rushing the stage. It's fabricated, James yelled, grabbing the mic. Check the timestamps Voss is doing. Legal pounced. Voss dragged out bellowing. But the seed was sown. Headlines by morning. ER Heroes Scandal. Gay doc in corruption probe? David fled to the rooftop. City sprawl mocking below. James found him. Coat over shoulders. We'll clear it. At what cost? David whispered. Tears hot. You're collateral. I can't. Stop. James cupped his face. We fight. Together. They did. Audits proving innocence. Voss suspended pending investigation. The board voted reforms through. David's testimony the pivot. But scars lingered, donors halved. Staff divided. In the quiet after, David proposed over Skyline brunch. Move in? Build this for real. James grinned, slipping a key onto David's collar. Already yours. Winter gripped Chicago like a vice. January 2026 blanketing the city in ice and introspection. The Voss scandal faded to footnotes. Resignation, quiet lawsuit settlement, but its chill permeated. David and James settled into cohabitation. James's apartment now, theirs. David's medical journals mingling with James's vinyl collection. Twin toothbrushes in the holder, a quiet victory. Mornings blurred into harmony. Coffee shared over the Sun-Times. Lazy fucks before shifts. The world outside their bubble. Yet humanism's thread wove deeper. David's letter, copied and circulated with permission, sparked a wave. Staff coming out in drips and drabs. Kai the intern started a mentorship program. Ramirez organized potlucks with rainbow jello salads. Even Mom visited, awkward at first, rosary clicking, but thawing over deep dish. "He seems good for you, David," she said of James, hugging stiff but genuine. "Just be happy." James's family was tougher. Iowa Christmases skipped for Galena getaways, but a sister called. Tentative bridge building. Dad's coming around. Slowly, romance flourished in stolen pockets. Valentines at Alinea, molecular gastronomy mirroring their alchemy. Spring drives to Starved Rock, hikes ending in cliffside picnics. James's head in David's lap as hawks wheeled overhead. Sex evolved, playful, profound. Toys from a discreet Lakeview shop adding sparks. "You're my anchor," David gasped one night, bound wrists a metaphor for chosen surrender. But climax's echo demanded resolution. Tommy's memorial, a quiet park gathering, rainbow ribbons on oaks drew dozens. Colleagues, James's old crew, even Lila, now out and dating a pharmacist. David spoke last. Tommy hid, but his light reached us. "May we burn brighter." James squeezed his hand, tears unspoken. That night, vulnerability peaked. Confessions of fears, David's of abandonment, James's of inadequacy. "You're enough," David vowed, sealing with lips and limbs, their union a sacrament. Conflict's final thread unraveled in summer. A patient, grizzled vet with end-stage cancer, confessed in palliative care. "Never told my boys I'm gay. Dying without it eats me." David listened, then shared his story, the letter's crux. "Tell them. Regrets the real killer." The vet did. Tearful FaceTime with sons who hugged screens. "Dad, we love you." Always did. David watched, chest tight, his own closure mirrored. By fall, Chicago General thrived. Enrollment up, pride float in the Loop Parade. David led rounds with lightness, James's texts peppering days. "Love you, Scalpel King." They dreamed bigger, a surrogacy consult, house hunting in Edgewater. One crisp October eve, atop the Willis Tower, skydeck glass floor a vertigo thrill, James dropped to one knee. "David Harlan, you've stitched my heart. Marry me? Let's make this forever." Tears blurred the view, city lights winking assent. "Yes," David choked, pulling him up into a kiss that tasted a future. The wedding was humanistic poetry. Rooftop in Lincoln Park. Autumn leaves confetti. Mom beaming beside James's sister. Vows echoed. In shadows and light. "I choose you." Rings exchanged, simple titanium. Engraved with "No more hiding." Honeymoon in Provincetown. Whale watches. Dune buggies. Nights tangled in beach house linens. Back home. Life unfolded. Adoption papers filed. A golden retriever named Scout bounding through their fixer-upper. Years later, at 15-year mark from the letter, David addressed residents. "Truth isn't a risk, it's the cure." James in the audience. Hand on swelling belly, Saiget's gift. Their family blooming. In the end, love's drama yielded grace. Not flawless, but fiercely human. Chicago's pulse beat on, and so did they, out and unbroken.